A rainy evening to everyone. After a scorching heat and humidity over here in Ahmedabad, it's raining heavily. So, welcome to No and Tell with Kosmos. Today is not Kosmos Ghost Party, but rain and love stories, music, drives, food go hand in hand. So, we'll be having a session with author Rahul Saini, who will be joining me and who mostly writes in the love stories genre. He is author of 7 best-selling novels. The recent one is I Left My Part with You. So he is also an architect, photographer, loves traveling, loves music, loves movies, and loves dogs. So he'll be talking on love stories, photographing, traveling, and with this amazing rain. Put down in comment what are your plans for something spicy, something special which you eat when it rains. Put down in the comment section. If you have some stories regarding rain and love, kindly put down. I would love to read it aloud, and I'm sure author Rahul will also love to read it aloud. Quickly, I'm going to invite him and we'll start the session. Invited him, and the noise of the raindrops, noise of the thunder, everything, clouds roaring. Hi,
Hello. Hi, how are you?
fine. How are you?
Good, 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 good.
Great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah. So I don't know where you are, but here it's raining very heavily at Ahmedabad.
Okay, so in Jalandhar right now, and it almost never rains here, so it's not raining here. But good to know it's raining in Ahmedabad. That's good to know.
Exactly, but it's love story, rain, traveling, that drive, songs, everything, it's just creating atmosphere to discuss all your books, which are mostly based on the love stories, and which has almost every book of yours has a character who is either a writer or searching for a publisher. I mean, a writer, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's definitely a reoccurring. In fact, I think there would be only 3 books out of 7 in
Three.
which we don't have writers. But
Uh-huh.
definitely, yeah, most of the books have writers somewhere in them.
Somewhere, yeah, a character. Correct.
Yeah,
The
I think.
recent
Sorry.
Their recent book, I Left My Part with You, also has a girl who ends up at the home of her favorite author, no? And how they carry on. Okay?
Yeah, I think what happens is that when it comes to writing, one has to be very honest with what they're writing,
Hmm.
and it has to come
Hmm.
from your personal experiences. So I think for me, that's the reason why I time and again keep talking about
Writing,
writers.
writers. Correct.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's always good to see that you love something, what you are doing, and you love that community. You are proud when something good happens for that community. So that's always encouraging. Okay. So my first question, you are an architect, you are an author, you love photography, you love music. Out of you love movies, and you love dogs. So out of all this, which part of you like the best? Not others, you.
So I think the answer to that is very simple. For some reason, I think uh, the the dog lover inside me is something which I think I like the best because I think the kind of pleasure that brings me, none of the other things do because because for all the other things I generally need to deal with people. But when I'm dealing with dogs, I'm dealing with dogs, and
That's
the kind
easy.
of simplicity and purity that comes in this exchange, it doesn't happen anywhere else.
So you're saying dogs are easy to deal with than animals.
They give me more
Oh, sorry, than
pleasure.
human, than human. Yeah. Than
They give me
humans.
more pleasure.
I
They're less complicated. They're more straightforward. They don't they don't play games. So
honestly, yes.
it's more pleasurable to have them around.
I love the background of yours with lot of books behind you. And
Thank you.
the recent
Thank you.
one, your recent one is right behind you,
Yeah,
I can
it's
see.
right there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Thank you.
Okay. Every photograph has a story to say, and so is with design. Every design, architectural design, has a story to say on its own. What do you have to say about it?
I think it has more to do with how we design, how we define a story as opposed to what stories are attached to it.
Hmm.
If everything that's created, everything that comes into existence, first of all, has the whole story attached to it, that how it came into being, and why it was done and how it was made and all of that. And then after that, it depends, like, what is it giving out to the people who come to experience that building, or who look at that photograph, or who read that book. So it depends on how you look at it. But in both the cases, definitely all pieces of art will always have stories to tell. So that's how I look at it.
So first it is their story, and then it has the story to tell. That what people has story attached to that photograph or the structure. That's what you are saying.
So there's a story of how that thing came into being, and there's a story of what that
What it
thing wants to
depicts.
make everyone feel. So that's.
Hmm. And then comes the story what everyone feels. That is different. What everyone feels from it.
Yes, because I think different people will always take different things from the same things. Like after watching a film, two people most probably will have two different
Different.
feelings and opinions about it. So.
Cool. So the love stories which you write are fantasized, heard, and experienced. But every time, have you come up with a different love story? Love ज्यादातर हमें वो फिल्मों में बताया गया होता है कि there is only one love story kind of thing. वो शाहरुख खान वाली movies में. So how do you come up with every time a different topic in the love story?
So that's one thing, first of all, which I very strongly disagree with. And if you have read the part I left with you, you'll see that there's a whole section in which I have gone ranting on, explaining, how the stories we've been exposed to has ruined our minds. Having said that, I know people identify me as an author who writes love stories, and my stories are projected and marketed as love stories. But trust me, I've never tried writing a love story, and I don't think any of the novels that I have written are love stories either. They are stories about people, and they are stories about how they feel and what they do. A love story, by definition, it has to talk about one kind of love for one kind of person, and it has to be a divine kind of a love. It may be unrequited love that the lovers may not be able to unite in by the end of that story, but that love always has to be the purest and the most divine and the most absolute thing. None of the books that I have ever written has had a love like that. If I talk about my first book, it was more about confusing your emotions for love and romance. If I talk about my second book, it was like confusing your ideas for ambition and just following the trends. The third one was essentially about reverse culture shock and the ideas that one has to deal with after you finish your education and you come out to deal with the real world. The fourth one was about what happens in the publishing industry and the struggles of authors. The one after that, the fifth one was again about that. The sixth one was more about the dark impacts of dark content that we are being exposed to a bit too much these days. And the seventh one, the part I left with you, is more like, you need to understand that love is not everything in this world. So none of my books essentially are, those typical romance novels. And I think since I've never attempted that, that's why they've always come out very differently.
So you project love, but you project it in other side of the love, the practical side or the rational side of the love, which normal people feel, ups and downs and everything, chaos, mess, happy ending, not happy ending, everything. That's what you project in your stories,
I think that
kind of.
that's one. Yeah, I think you can put it like that. Yes.
Yeah. So because see, what we are used to through the films and all that is the that love is, totally happy ending, kind of fairy tale romance and everything. So that has made us overrate our standards or set higher boundaries, which in real life is not so. Love is not only the good part, what we see in the movies.
See, it's very easy to sell a dream, and it's very easy to give them a picture that this is the best thing that can happen to you, and just keep thinking and this and that and not talk about the reality. And at the same time, it's very easy to sell fears as well. It's very easy to sell stories like which are very scary, which are deep and dark, and which are based on certain horror ideas, but it's very difficult to sell reality. And I think we need more writers writing stuff like this, because what happens is that if you read too much of those mushy rosy romances, you will be so upset and unhappy with your life that it's ruining. And I think that is where the damage comes in with all those books. And that is why we need more stories like the ones which are more realistic. But industries are industries. They are based on profits, they're based on everything. So things which
Commercial.
sell better, yeah, everything is commercial, it's business. It's done for some particular profit in terms of finances. So what doesn't sell will not have a market and will not be produced enough. So that's the whole thing. That's why I don't object people identifying my books as romance. If you want to identify it as romance, go ahead. Just read
Go
it
ahead.
and see what I'm
That
trying to tell.
that's practical kind of romance again,
Yeah.
the real life one. Cool. Any movie which you feel that you should pen it down in a book. Other way around. Those classic. I have grown up with those classic movies in the 90s, romance, typical romances, Sarah Khan and Yash Raj films and all those. So, any such book, what is the difference then and now in the books? And any such movie which you would like to pen down in the book, which you feel that love story has not been justified in that 3 hours or 2 hours, whatever the movie time.
Well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. So, I'll talk about movies. I won't talk about books because it's difficult to talk about both the things together. So, let me talk about movies. So, I would not want to write or rewrite a movie which I would feel has been done well. So all of my favorites are off the table. It's hard for me to focus on essentially love stories because I honestly believe, it's a phase, and after that phase things are hard and realistic. And then if you try to hold on to that one thread, you will just end up ruining your life and ruining your mind. So it's hard for me to look at those hardcore
Love.
romantic movies, but
Yes.
there are a few movies which I think were handled very terribly. Right now, the example that's coming to my mind is Tamasha, because I saw Tamasha, and somehow I was reminded very strongly of Whiplash. Tamasha was about this one person who was stuck in the wrong place, but his heart lied somewhere else, and he wanted to do that, and that's where he wanted to be.
Okay.
Whiplash was again about this one person who was very passionate about one particular art form, and he would not, leave it for anything whatsoever, and he would
Anything.
just keep on, striving for it on and on and on. Both had this one overlap, but where Tamasha went wrong was that, within the last 5 minutes of the film, with a blink of an eye, the character becomes a world, national renowned playwright and a dramatist, and that doesn't happen.
Wish, wish, मैंने होता है. Correct.
Whiplash,
Whiplash.
he went on and on and on and on to striving, and then he struggled so much, and then he gets that one piece of music. That's how intense you need to be for art to get there.
Correct.
But in Tamasha, it was
Correct.
like बस आंख
That's it.
झपकी और
Yeah.
आप ना
हाँ.
इंडिया के सबसे बड़े playwright बन गए. I think that was very misleading, and if I would get a chance to retell a story, I think I will redo that, because I've dealt with students for the past 10 to 12 years, and I've seen the damage such stories and books have done. These days it's very difficult to explain it to students that if you want to reach somewhere, you will need to work for it, because
Work. Correct.
it is such an easy thing to believe. As I said, it's very easy to sell dreams. The students are so naive these days. They feel that kuch karna nahi padega, and we'll just become famous and the biggest people on earth. So that's one story I
That's
think
it.
I would want to do.
Wonderful. And you've given a wonderful message that yeah, in just a second you cannot. You have to work hard for it. You have to even yeah, like adore the failures while you are working for success, because many people cannot do that कि हमने किया मतलब क्यों. आजकल के बच्चों में भी ये देखने को मिलता है. If I participated in somewhere, I should be the winner. But why fail? There are certain things where you will fail. You learn, that's how. Talking about your architecture thing, tell us, what do you do? Do you teach? Do you work? What it is? What kind of architecture are you in?
So I'm more into academics now as opposed to practice, and especially because of the lockdown and everything, it's been a while that I have picked to take up design projects on and off, but I find it very difficult to deal with all the people who are involved in this, because just like filmmaking, architecture is also teamwork, and the teams are huge, and it's very easy to put the blame on each other, and many times people become very dishonest when it comes to the
Correct.
responsibilities that they're given. So I find that very unnerving, and I don't like that, and that's why I generally try to
Oh,
evaluate
just
like
teach.
what the team is going to be like. Only then I'll step up and take it. So that the client needs to be of the same wavelength, I would.
Okay. Okay, but teaching is your passion, teaching architecture to the students, designing.
Yes, yeah, teaching design is something which I find very thrilling. So that's definitely something which I love doing.
Great. Okay. Mm. You're okay. See, you write about love, which is not exactly the lovey-dovey love. What are your views on platonic love or the love after marriage, after commitment? Sorry, marriage is the general term, but after commitment.
A choice. So we're talking about platonic love. See, it's a matter of philosophies that a person follows. It's a matter of the set of one's own beliefs and what one wants out of life and what one wants to be. So, and according to that, only the relationships are formed by a person with the people around them. If my ideas are that I want to be ethical in life and I want to have an ethical life, and that's what my priority is, yes, there are more chances of me stepping into platonic relationships with people around me. But if my focus is that I want to, lead a very satisfying life, and I want to be very happy, and I want to gain all the kind of achievements that I want to be, and I'm a very I centric kind of a person, then definitely my relationships will be difficult to form into something which is more platonic. So I think it depends on what kind of person one is and what kind of
Moral.
philosophies one morals is a simpler way to put it. So it depends on that. And relationship after a commitment is not how it is before the commitment, because then the whole dynamics change, and expectations change, and responsibilities change. So
Everything
uh, so
changes.
everything changes.
Yeah.
So one needs to be mindful of that, before getting into a committed relationship. And it's not that simple, and it's not that smooth, it's rough. And one needs to know it's going to be that way. It will disturb your peace of mind. You cannot have this illusion that that is never going to happen and everything is going to be fun. You will be disturbed always if you're not, if you're going with that kind of an expectation. So that's how I look at these things.
Yeah, one book says that can love change after a while? In a with a time, with time, can love change? So can it?
So I think what I was saying in that book is that does your idea of love, does your definition of love change after,
Yeah.
with time? I think it definitely does. In my case, when I was a kid, I was in my early teens, I thought about romance and relationships very differently. When I was in college, I looked at them very differently. When I started working, I looked at them very differently. And now I look at love and relationship very differently. So for me, this was something which I observed, that I went through. And that was an idea which I wanted to, share with my readers, that this happened to me. Is it happening to you, or do you think it's happening to you or other people around you? So that was the idea.
I guess it happens with everyone. That's what you related with the viewers or readers. That it happens with everyone. Love changes. The definition for love, meaning for love, how you experience and accept it changes from time to time.
Yeah, but not everyone agrees with that, and that's one thing which I tried exploring in the book as well, because a lot of the book, a huge part of the book is conversation between two people, and one has this mindset and the other has the exact opposite. So it's a conflict between the two, that they have this huge disagreement, and one has one thing to say and the other has the other thing to say. So I do understand there's a conflict with this idea as well, among people. So that's what I've tried to explore and explain.
Okay, coming to your writing journey and your latest book. Tell us something about it. What's your writing journey kind of? I know, of course, a roller coaster ride, but how you ended up writing? What was your first book kind of? After when you completed, what was it? Marketing and everything. So tell us a little bit about your writing journey till now and your latest book.
So I think right after college, when I started working, I think one creates art only when one is not satisfied with the world around them. There has to be this one dissatisfaction to push you to create
Oh,
something, because if you're happy with everything, you won't need to say anything, you won't need to create anything. So that's the whole thing. And when I started working after finishing college, I was not okay with the way things were. I was not okay with the way the firm that I was working with. I had a problem with everything, and I had to get it out. And venting with friends is something that we do, but it wasn't helping
that
much.
that was doesn't help much. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't help much, because it does not do anything. So I think that's what pushed me to write my first book, and I had a lot to say, because there was a lot I disagreed with. After that, I think it's that age, there's a lot of fire within you. So you have the drive that I will finish it. So I finished that book, I finished writing it. And I just had an bachelor's in architecture degree with me back then. I didn't have master's in literature, which I have now. So I had
Which
very
you have
limited
now.
knowledge of. Yeah, yeah. So I went ahead and got an MA in English later. But back then, I just had that one bachelor's of architecture degree, and I didn't know much about literature either. But I was so adamant that I will, get this published, that I just went all the way. And I was lucky to be, thinking about it back then, because the Indian literary scene was very different back then. The publishing industry was very different. It was not so many people were writing. There weren't many publishers either, and we had lesser number of books. So things were very different, and it did take me a good, I think, 2 years to get published. In fact, after finishing the first draft, I went down to Ahmedabad and worked for a film for like 9 to 10 months, And then after that, I came back to Delhi, and then I started searching for the publishers again.
Publish.
That yeah, we were staying in Satellite, close to Ahmedabad. That time it was just
So
coming up, and it was just
right
forming.
now
And
is where I stay. Yeah. So right now is where I stay.
so I've spent like a good half a year or so around that area, but trapped in a flat because
What?
we weren't allowed to go out and there was so much of work. So then I came back to Delhi, and then I started searching for another publisher, and then I got a deal, and then the book worked like I had never imagined it to. I always keep saying that when I got it published, I thought two people were going to buy the book. One was going to be me, and the other was going to be me buying that book in disguise. But that didn't happen. The book sold crazy, topped the charts. Twilight had just released around that time. It
Ah,
started selling more than Twilight. It started shooting above Chetan Bhagat books, and all of that started to happen. So after that, I thought that this has to go on. I can't put an end to this now. So then I wrote my second book and my third book and so on and so forth, and it's been a journey after that. Yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. It's very lucky of you that your first book got a good publishing and a good marketing. Generally, first book uh, doesn't sell well commercially, if I say number wise, if I say generally.
See, I think it depends. Even lately, I've seen a lot of debut authors whose first book has gone ahead to become good bestsellers. I think there was this book called "Everyone Has a Love Story," and then "You Live Only Once" recently. So these are big bestsellers. So and these are first books by these authors. So I think it happens. Yes, definitely, luck plays a very big part, but I think it does happen.
Honestly, my first book, I was very lucky to get it published with Bloomsbury. So,
Oh,
yeah, but still, I feel it didn't do that well number wise on Amazon. But yeah,
what year was it published?
before 2 years,
So
2019.
right now things are very different as opposed to how things were a few years back, and marketing is a very different game now. It took me a while to figure out
Yeah.
how things go now.
Hmm. So that I couldn't do with my first book, marketing part. So I lagged
But we'll
there.
have the next time. And you can always revive your books. You can always strategize a revival for your books as well.
Again, you are. Yeah. Maybe with the next book. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's what is your writing journey about. See, when one writes book, one should take time to describe emotions of the characters that are involved, especially male character in your book, because we seldom see male expressing feelings, whether it is in real life or in the books. That part, that gender is ignored when it comes to expressing the feelings. So, what do you have to say about it?
I think there's definitely certain patterns that genders follow, and generally that's what gets reflected in writing as well. But that said, there are certain men who are very expressive, and there are certain women who are not very expressive. So there are always people who would break the
Ah,
stereotypes as well. And since there have been so many studies recently which go ahead and tell them why men have more heart attacks than women is because there's a lot of pent up emotion inside and all of that. So I think that's why I have always tried to make all of my characters as expressive, and none of them who
mute.
hold back. There would be certain characters who are not always expressive, but then they will have one outburst and then they'll express everything. So that's how I look at it, and that's the kind of treatment I give them.
Wonderful. So I hope in real life also people who read your book expresses, be it a male or female,
I
because
hope so.
venting up, yeah, in one way or the other. Like I am rather very introvert, but I express it through my writing generally. So that's how I started, right? My writing journey and my first book. That's how I wrote. So, because unlike to talk with people, I find it easy to write it down, my feelings. So, in a one form or the other, I feel that every human should vent out their feelings, express. Okay. As a writer, how important it is to define and make it clear on page. What is strange attractor that makes your concept hype worthy? And then go all out it, don't hold back. Once you have that idea, okay, okay.
So I generally don't conceive stories like that, and I generally don't search for, that X factor that we're trying to talk about here. If I have something to say, I will weave a story around it. If I think that this is something that needs to be said, I will weave a story around it. For example, the part I left with you essentially was, when you meet someone and when you part, they never move away completely. There's something that leave behind. They leave behind with you, and it says misleading people for generations now. These were the things that I wanted to say with this book. So then wove a story around it, and then I wrote it. But when it's so this for me is more of a post writing exercise as opposed to a pre-writing exercise, because I would write what I have written, and then I'll identify, okay, now how do I tell this to people, and how do I make people want to read it. So that happens for me after I write.
Ideally, you have end part in your mind first, the message that you want to deliver to the people or the story that you want to deliver to the people, and then you weave around the starting and the middle part of the story.
Yeah, and then I sit down and figure out how I want to,
How you want to say.
pitch
So,
it and project it.
this message which you gave that when anyone parts from you, there is something left. You cannot totally, it transforms you. You cannot totally be the same. That holds true for not only male female relationship, couple relationship, but anyone you love, right?
Anyone you love, and anyone you hate as well. I mean, like, the
As a,
people who you hate also transform you when they when
also,
they go away. So
correct.
whether it's people you like, whether it's people you hate, when they move away, they will have altered you a bit.
So even when someone dies, they leave, they'll alter you. The life will never be same as you were.
That's
Okay.
true.
My next question. Every scene, a writer needs to make it harder for protagonists to do what they want. Even if it is something very simple like making a sandwich, make it harder. Take away the knife, make them run out of mayo. So, do you believe in this for a good story or it's just a myth?
See, these are templates, these are tools, these are devices which I somehow have never used, and probably that's something which a lot of people critique about my work as well. I see
In a
the
way, it
story.
isn't good. In a way, isn't it good? Because see, when you don't follow something, you write your heart out, and that will be seen in your work. One who reads the story will come to know that you've put your heart, raw form in it, raw form of the story, rather than following any particular plotting scheme of the authors that you've read or something like that.
Yes, I believe in that. And also, what I've seen recently is that, see, we cannot ignore that people watch more television or watch more movies than they read books.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
when it comes to the hunger or the craving for a story, uh, now we have those FM players and, all those audible stuff happening again, which gives us phenomenal stories. It used to be a rage back in the 60s or the 70s. There used to be these radio plays. Now they are also making a comeback in terms of, so many apps are there and we can listen to stories and all of that. So if I'm looking for a story, maybe I'm not going to pick up a book, because I can go for a teleseries, I can go for a film, I can now even listen to a story on my phone, and I have so many other options if I'm looking for a story. Why do I want to read a book? I would want to read a book because one, if there's some detailed information that I'm looking for, which cannot be accessed on television or on YouTube or anything, or if I want something thought provoking. It's very difficult to have thought provoking stuff when you have content on screen or in audio format. So that is why when I sit down to write a story, I would have more of a philosophical bedrock as opposed to a plot in my mind. And since that is the bedrock, so all these problems, like making something hard for a character, they kind of fade away for me. I'll tell you something. So if we sit down and start reading philosophy, we go back to classical philosophy, we go back to the Greek times, and you will see a lot of the philosophy was written in conversational formats. There would be a mythological character that Plato will pick up, and then he will create a fictional character, and it will be a discourse between the two. And that was how philosophy started in the first place. This device has been used on and off over time. We have so many examples of such stuff in the movies as well. If you pick up films like Before Sunset, After Sunset, and all that whole series, there are two people talking. They just met in the evening, and they're just sitting at a bar, and they just start talking, and they exchange ideas and comments. Where's the plot? There's no plot. So that's the kind of that's the formula that I use. There has to be an exchange of thoughts. There has to be a conflict in thought and ideology, as opposed to in action and other stuff. So that's how I've been building my story. So that's why I've never faced that issue that we're talking about.
Wonderful. So in a way, you might be not following any of the writing techniques that people, these workshops and everything teach. You should write daily. You should sit for a particular time to write daily. You should do this. You should do that. But I feel that when it comes to creativity, it's like if I'm not in a mood today, I should not forcibly sitting on my laptop or with a book and pen and writing something.
So I do read a lot of books about writing. I do listen to a lot of my favorite authors when they speak about writing, and if I get a chance, I do visit I do attend workshops as well. And there are certain things which I identify will work for me, and there are certain things which I identify will not work for me, and I filter on my own. Like, for example, if you said that writing every day is essential for a writer, that's one advice which one of my editors gave me long time back, and I stick to that. But at the same time, I agree with what you are saying as well. So if I'm working on a story, and if that story is not coming to me today, I will not force it. So I'm not going to work on that story that day, but still I would sit down and write. I'll just maybe, like you said, rewrite a certain part of a story, or just expand a thing, or just sit down and explain something. Because that editor of mine, she said that, Rahul, writing is an art, and you need to have your riyaz every day, just like you do for singing. And if you're not doing that riyaz every day, if you're not doing that practice every day, your writing is not going to improve. So don't miss out on that. So just like that, if I read about stuff like, how to write a crime thriller and stuff like that, I'll filter on my own. I won't blindly just follow everything that's been stated, like a rule book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wonderful. Yeah, one should even not follow that. One should filter, because everyone has different following.
Process. Yeah, we all have our own process.
In the love story genre, you are including everything, from what I understand from your books and whatever you said about your writing, that you're including difficult times for a writer in a way in the love story. So kind of it, will you be including crime and horror in your love story further in future?
I think the one that I wrote before this one, Love to Hurt You, comes quite close to that.
Yeah.
It became very disturbing for a lot of people, because it's very hard, it's very strong. So a lot of people had a reaction to it. What is this? And it's too much, and we shouldn't be having books like these. So all of that happens. It comes and goes, but I find it very difficult actually to stick to a genre, because I feel stories are stories, and I find it very challenging to just stick to one particular tone or one particular feel of storytelling. So which works, which does not work in my favor, because readership is very hard to develop if you keep hopping from one genre to another like that. But let's see where it takes me.
Any future projects? You just released your recent book, but what are the future projects you're working on?
Working on quite a few also, thinking about some translation projects as well. There are two stories that I have in mind right now. One is very dark, and one is very bright and happy and cheerful. So I'm gonna start working on that soon, so let's see.
What about mini books? Thinking to write on it? Pocket books kind of thing. Mini books, pocket book kind of
Mini books, what are
pocketbook
those?
kind of
You,
things. See, ideally, Ajitabh sir brought in India this concept, the pocketbook,
uh-huh.
which has very few pages. Like it can be carried in a pocket, read anywhere, in no time. Like so, how do
Are
you
those
feel?
short stories?
Yeah, the entire story, but in a very small book, very few pages, very few words.
Okay. I need to know more about this in order to, understand if I can, write in that format. So,
Pocket books. Pocket Love Story is the one which is brought to India by Ajitabh sir, author Ajitabh Bose, and he was the one who brought that trend to India. And now many people are calling it as mini stories, mini books, nano tales, whatever you say. But they are very few pages. You can carry it in your pocket or purse and read it anywhere you go. And any reader who has just started reading also can finish it because it's just small, very few pages.
very thin. It sounds like short stories. I have written short
Kind of.
stories, and yeah, I have written short stories, and see, it depends on the idea that I conceive. So, and that idea only designs and constructs its own length. There are certain stories which will have a shorter length. There are certain story ideas which will need to be expanded. But I don't restrain myself from writing shorter fiction. So I do have a number of published shorter unpublished shorter fiction as well. So if I do get a chance to get it out there, I would love to do that.
Great. Okay. Let's talk about your love for music. What kind of music you like, and do you sing as well? If you say yes, make sure I'm going to make you sing.
So there's no way I sing. I can't. People say I don't sing. I say I can't
I
sing.
can't
It's that
sing.
bad. It's that bad. Uh,
Yeah.
but coming to the kind of music I like, I think there's no limit. I can't put the kind of music I like in any category. The people who come and take a look at my record collection and my CD collection, they go like, is it like the collection that the whole family has, or is it like this is your choice? And I'm like, these are all my personal, this is what my personal choice is. So you will see things ranging from classical to fusion to Western classical to Indian classical to ghazals to Hindi film music to English pop to you name it and you'll see there.
Everything.
There are some very bad and cheap Hindi covers of stuff from ABBA and Bonnie M, which you will not find anywhere else. I have that as well, which has ridiculous lyrics. And at the same time, I will have something extremely profound by, people like Jagjit Singh, and so there's this whole range. So I can listen to anything. It just depends on what I want to listen. at what
What
point
I
of
feel
time.
about you is talking to you since little time we are, that you don't like to categorize anything when it comes to writing, when it comes to reading, when it comes to music, when it comes to anything. You don't like to categorize things into one particular thing and, bind it or have a barrier against it. I think you have a good comment from someone. May I just read it first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Short stories. Just a moment. I'm not able to read it.
Short books won't justify Raul's writing stories. It has to be normal book size to completely enjoy the whole
Completely
story.
enjoy it. Okay.
Maybe that's why none of my books have come in that format yet. But talking about labels, labels are something which I don't go by at all, and I think no one actually can be categorized. We mistake ourselves that we are this limited, and this is who we are, and this is how we are. I think no one is. That famous line from The Perks of Being a Wallflower, we are infinite, and that is why it's such a profound line, and that's why it echoed with everyone so strongly, because you can't limit yourself like that. You are infinite, I am infinite, we are all infinite, and all the spiritual gurus also keep talking about it. So that's the whole thought that I follow, and I've tried to explain this in, again, this book of mine, The Part I Left With You, because there are so many philosophers who have worked on this. There's this whole idea of the mirror phase, which they call. And there's one particular philosopher who has explained this starting from a very young age, that, when a child looks at himself for the first time in a mirror, that's when he's told that this is you. Before that, the child will have an infinite image of oneself. He'll be or she'll be everything, and that's why kids of a young age want to be everything, because human consciousness is infinite, and it's only later, it's the social construct which is told, which is induced in people, like, this is how you need to dress up, and this is what you are, and this is how you look, at this is when you look good, this is when you look bad. They're all constructs which are drilled in someone's mind. But if left natural, and if one is never able to see oneself in a mirror, which is a natural condition, because mirrors are man-made objects, you can only see your reflections, and most of the time partial reflections in water, but never an absolute
Never an
exact.
absolute.
Yeah. So it's a human man-made thing, which is artificial. So that's why I find it very difficult to buy the labels. That's why I think I'm not able to follow particular genres as well, because it's so
Correct.
difficult for me to do that.
Right from the birth, we are labeled, boy is blue, girl is pink color.
Yeah, and if you go back in history, you would see that 500 years back in Europe, boys were pink and girls were blue, and these things keep flipping. So
This,
so you never.
as per society's convenience, the things and the rules and the ticks, societal ticks, that how we fit in changes.
Yes.
So yeah,
True.
at times male-female relationship is considered as a taboo, and one other side it is considered as a platonic love. So yeah, it keeps on changing. You can never, I mean, satisfy or leave as per that. Okay.
I think it's best not to think unless it starts creating an issue.
So traveling photography both makes good stories, as told. And yes, before this question, I remembered a sentence, a quote which I had read, that if you label feelings, because we were talking about labels, I remembered that if you label huge feeling, it becomes easy to grasp. So is it true? I don't find it true. I cannot label my feeling. Like if I see my parent dying, I cannot label a feeling which I am going through at that particular time. How do you label feelings? I don't know. So I didn't agree with that sentence.
See, there are languages, and there are verbal languages, there are sign languages, there are instinctive languages. There are so many different ways to communicate, all through the animal kingdom. Uh, all kind of animals communicate. May it be birds, may it be mammals, may it be anyone at all. They communicate. Talking about dogs, they are so expressive, and they don't need any label to express what they are feeling. And still, they're not only able to communicate with us, they are able to communicate amongst themselves as well. Where are the labels there, you know? So I think when you label something, you do definitely identify it, but you end up losing something at the same time as well, because you can never actually absolutely express what you're feeling
What you have to.
with just one label. So you know, and
Okay.
that is something which for us writers is is something which many will have a very mixed reaction with, because there's this whole school of thought which says that, you know, language kills emotion. You know, because when you start putting things in words, it starts to get
It's still
misleading, and it starts to, you know,
correct.
decrease
Correct.
its thing. So
Value. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Correct.
it
Correct.
decreases value. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if I'm giving birth to my child, and if I'm asked, describe like in one word, how do you feel? I cannot describe it. I cannot describe it. How I felt seeing my child for the, or neither I can describe what is the best moment in my life, because there are so many moments that I am living. How can I label one as best and one as the worst? How do you label that?
Talk about best. Can we describe this particular moment? Absolutely. I don't think so.
Absolutely.
Like every moment is infinite.
Correct, correct, correct. That's what you said first. We are infinite in every moment. Is correct. Okay, traveling and photography both makes up for a good stories. Okay, जब भी कुछ like we start seeing a movie or a love story, it always starts with train. I don't know why, but it always starts with a train journey generally. Okay, so traveling and stories, and you are a great traveler as well. You like traveling. So, is there any such untapped place where you have traveled and felt writing? Writing anything, writing not about that place, but writing. You went there and you felt, okay, this is the place where I want to sit and write.
Traveling went extinct a year and a half back, so so I've not done that. But
True.
yes, definitely traveling is something which my mind works a lot more. It becomes very active when I'm just sitting in a moving vehicle and my mind starts to work, and it's so sad that we can't do that anymore that frequently. Uh, there are so many places in Himachal which used to be my pet spots to just write. So there are so many cafes, and
Seriously.
there are so yeah, yeah. So I used to do that. Oh, I stayed in Himachal for like I think 5 to 6 years back then. But then, you know, you have responsibilities, and then you need to take care of that. So there are so many spots there. But also, I visited Mandu 2013, if I'm not mistaken, or 2014, and that place just had a way of pushing me to write a story, you know. And I'm still working on it, and I think it's going to take a while. But that was one place
But
which
that
made
pushed
me
you.
write something. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I hope we can travel much as much we used to. So it was like that. You went, you stayed there. Okay, you said you stayed there at Himachal. You didn't went just for writing there, right?
I used to do that. So I used to have my writing stints there. So I used to pack up my stuff. I used to pick up the books that I was researching with, and I used to take my laptop and I used to just go there for writing retreats. And I
Wow,
would do that very frequently actually back then. But
wow, cool. Okay. Any other message or thing which you want to say about your books? Of course, your books are available on Amazon, and I request my readers to have a look at those books. And if we can see the cover of your latest book, please.
yeah, so that's the latest one. It's called The Part I Left With You. Uh, I understand that not every book is for every reader, but if you want to read something different, if you are tired of reading the same story over and over again, and if you want to have a fresh look at the same things that everyone has been talking about for the last 200 years, then pick up this book. And this is one book which I think I can guarantee will not disappoint you, because I've spent a lot of time thinking that how do I say these things so that everyone understands? And all of my previous books were like, okay, I want these people to understand this, I want these people to understand this, and in that whole process, they had very niche readership and appeal and audience. But this is one book which is something which everyone needs to know. And I would love to hear your thoughts about it as well, because it's not something which happened to some people and which doesn't happen to some people. This is something which happens to everyone.
Everyone.
And I'm pretty sure that everyone will have something to say about this. It's not that mushy kind of a love story, because a lot of people tell me we don't read love stories, so this book is not for us. But I think this is
Yes.
one book which,
You said it in a perfect tone that made me laugh out. Sorry. Sorry.
this is one book which all the people who love romance and mushy stories, they will like it too. And this is one book which
Others
people
will
who
also like.
hate those kind of stories will like as well. So I think I don't think anyone else has written something like this before, and I don't see anyone doing that either, because you really have to break out of a mold and have something very strong to say and that's why this book happened. So give it a shot and let me know
Wonderful.
how you like it.
Definitely, definitely. And I also request my viewers who are viewing and who will be viewing later that do give Rahul Saini's this book as well as other books a shot to read. You may have other side of the thoughts is what I say about my book, other side of the thoughts to the normal expression, normal feeling called love. It was very pleasant talking with you. If you have any last message for the viewers, for your fans, for your writers, readers, anyone, you can.
Tough times, stay safe, be very careful,
Cautious.
care for people around you, help people around you. And we're going through a lot, and hope and strength for everyone. And keep reading, and cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for being there on the show. It was pleasure talking to you and knowing about your books. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me here. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Great. So this was author Rahul Saini who writes love, but the other side or the practical side of the love stories. And I hope to see you soon with other authors and more about them and the writing and the literature. Will come up with some new ideas. Also, you can DM me your suggestions. Thank you for joining and stay safe. Keep reading, keep watching my show. Thank you. Bye bye. Good night.